One day, Jesus got into a boat with his disciples, and he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side of the lake." So they put out, and while they were sailing, he fell asleep. A windstorm swept down on the lake, and the boat was filling with water, and they were in danger. They went to him and woke him up, shouting, "Master, Master, we are perishing." And he woke up and rebuked the wind and the raging waves. They ceased, and there was a calm. He said to them, "Where is your faith?" They were afraid and amazed, and said to one another, "Who then is this, that he commands even the winds and the water, and they obey him?" The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
I want to start off by saying it is a privilege for me to be here tonight, to be able to share a homily that I would love to preach at Sunday Mass is something that is very close to my heart. Whenever I have one of these rare occasions to break open the Word, I have a muse who guides me. It is someone whose presence I felt with me when I had the wonderful opportunity to travel to the Holy Land several years ago. Her name is Mary Magdalene. Something to keep in mind as I go through my homily. Ordinarily, when I am invited to give a reflection, the readings are chosen for me. Tonight, I got to pick the gospel. My initial inspiration was Jesus calming the storm. That can't be right, I thought. Knowing all the beautiful passages with women, many we don't hear during our Sunday liturgical cycle, certainly I would speak on one of those to celebrate the feast of Mary Magdalene. But which one? The more I thought about what I should talk about, the more it came to me over and over again. Jesus calming the storm. And as you heard, it is the passage I chose. So I started off thinking of all the things Jesus taught us and all the miracles he performed. What is it about this story that makes it so memorable to us? Our connection with Jesus calming the storm usually starts at an early age. This story often becomes a favorite of children as they first learn about Jesus. Every child can relate to a protective, loving adult making something that is really scary disappear. There is no parable that needs deciphering and no big theological discussion required. As a child, it's just cool stuff. Then as we grow older, the storm becomes a metaphor for all our hardships in life. And we know that our faith in Jesus is what sees us through those difficult times. Then I moved on to my research of the story and quickly discovered a surprising new twist. So I offer you 3 points to consider regarding the passage. Point 1, I'll call association by order of appearance. Jesus calming the storm is found in all the synoptic gospels, but the placement of the storm in Luke is most significant. It is in chapter 8. Now recall, for our contextual setting, the first 3 verses of Luke chapter 8. They speak of the women who accompanied Jesus as he journeyed from one town and village to another. And Mary Magdalene was one of those women. For centuries, Mary had been associated with the unnamed woman who was a sinner that bathed Jesus' feet with her tears and dried them with her hair, simply because the passage appeared directly before Luke 8, 1 through 3. Since the passage of the storm comes a mere 19 verses after Luke 8, 1 through 3, we can apply the same logic as the early fathers of the church in a more positive light this time and say, because the stories appear so close together, Mary must have been in the boat with Jesus. As I said, association by order of appearance. But since we all know that logic is highly suspect, I offer 2 more points. Point 2. Feminist theologians have expressed the opinion that if women are not specifically excluded from a gospel passage, they were most likely present. This essentially is stating that women didn't run and hide when they heard Jesus was around. They searched him out to hear him speak, just as the men did. Now, the storm passage in Matthew refers to men of little faith, and the men marveled at Jesus. Exclusive language that possibly precludes women being in the boat. The story in Mark refers to other boats crossing along with the one that Jesus was in, leaving the possibility that the women could have been with Jesus, but were in another boat. But Luke uses only the inclusive plural pronouns of they and them, and does not refer to other boats being there. So if we use Luke's version of the story, by feminist theological standards, we can say there is a good chance that Mary was in the boat with Jesus. Point 3 is rather straightforward. Mary Magdalene was a disciple of Jesus. According to the Catholic Encyclopedia of the Bible, there are 2 definitions for disciples of Jesus. The first is quite simply those who follow the teachings of Jesus. The second is listed as a smaller group of disciples who literally traveled with Jesus from place to place. Once again, recall Luke chapter 8, 1 through 3. The footnote for these 3 verses in the NAB Catholic Study Bible says, and I quote, Luke presents Jesus as an itinerant preacher, traveling in the company of the 12 and of the Galilean women who are sustaining them out of their means. As we heard, the storm story begins with the line. One day, Jesus got into a boat with his disciples, and he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side of the lake." Mary was part of that second smaller group of disciples that traveled with Jesus. And surely, Jesus would have taken the women who were sustaining the group with him across the lake. Mary was in the boat with Jesus. The 3 points I just presented lead me to believe it is not only possible, but that it is highly probable that Mary and some other woman were in the boat with Jesus when he calmed the storm. Now, how does this change our perception and interpretation of the story? I pass that on to all of us to consider. For me, just thinking Mary was in the boat makes a huge difference. It shows that the stories we know and love, Mary most likely experienced firsthand. I will never hear the story the same way again. In closing, I would like to return a minute to my trip to the Holy Land. As I expressed earlier, I felt a particular closeness to Mary Magdalene during the time I spent by the Sea of Galilee. It was her territory, after all, since she was born in the village of Magdala on the northwest shore of the lake. Mary's love and faithfulness to the way of Jesus was crucial to keeping his teachings alive after he died. It was amazing to think, as I stood by the lake, that some 2,000 years later, the good news of Jesus was still with us because of Mary Magdalene, the apostle to the apostles. May her memory inspire us to continue to keep the way of Jesus alive for generations to come.
Amen.